Our next speaker is a good friend and colleague of mine. I've had the great pleasure of working with Steve for, I don't know, years, 8 years, 9 years, something like that. We're presently working together on Rock Band VR, which Steve will be performing later this evening. Some unique takes on some popular songs from that game. Steve is a musician, but he's also a design mind, and when you're in my line of work making music games, people that are as talented as composers as Steve is are rarely amazing designers. Steve has a sensibility for both. I adore his work. He's been able to make such flexible, different kinds of music depending on the context or prototype. He's done everything from compose gorgeous string sections for games like Fantasia Music Evolved to creating all sorts of strange electronic music for different prototypes that we've done, and deeply joyful, playful music for the game Beat Sports that we worked on together. Steve is going to give a talk about music, games, and music for games. He not only composes and works on games at Harmonix, but also has composed original music for games like Grim Dawn and The Magic Circle. My pleasure to introduce Steve Pardo.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks for having me. It's my first time here, and it's such an amazing, so far it's just been amazing just to be around so many really talented game designers. So I hope this is speaks some knowledge about what it's like to be an audio person. How many audio people are here? How many people here are aware of Fmod or Wise? Are all of you guys using it in games? All right, so for the ones that aren't raising their hands, this maybe will speak to you. And for those of you who are using it, hopefully this will give a little bit more insight to why, what are the advantages of using those, and what maybe some of the mechanics inside those engines that maybe you guys aren't using that you could, specifically with music. But who am I really? I started being a jazz musician, a saxophone player. Went to the University of Miami for jazz saxophone performance. I studied composition, my master's, as well as audio engineering, which is sort of how I got into games. My brother started working at Harmonix before I did, and said, hey, there's a position open, and you're a musician, you like video games, you should work here. And I said, okay, that's cool, I'll do that. So now I'm the lead audio designer, work with Matt, like he mentioned, audio for Rock Band and Dance Central, done music there as well as outside of music at SkewSound, which is an audio crew that I formed on the side, and we've done music for Grim Dawn, just like Matt said. So here's kind of where I'd like to take this. You guys know who Koji Kondo is, right? Mario and Zelda, that's all you need to know. The ultimate goal for me in making music, or at least one of the main goals for me, is to create memorable melodies. That goal is there regardless of the tools we have. I'll be talking a lot about the tools we have as composers and tools that you guys can use or are using. But let's keep it real. This is what really matters: is memorable melodies, good music, right? So I'll be talking about some stuff, but this is what's most important. Right, the modern game soundtrack is a dynamic film score. You got your level ambience, your background music, town's menus, you got your boss fights, rising intensity, you got your stingers, win, lose, and reward. I'm sure you guys know this stuff. But at Harmonix, the composers are also designers. So the music drives gameplay. Songs are levels. This was my day job for a long time, marking out these tracks for Rock Band and turning it into the actual game, right? So all of our games are being built out from the music. It starts there. Most of the time, the music works for the game, right? But at Harmonix, the game revolves itself around the music. Rock Band has precise rhythm performance. Fantasia Music Evolved, motion and movement to the music. A City Sleeps is a generative shmup gameplay driven by the song. If you guys haven't checked that out, I would strongly suggest it's out on Steam right now. And Rock Band VR, which is what we're working on right now, the music you create builds your score. So it all starts from this performance from you. Obviously, there are other studios. I just want to call these guys out. Thumper, 140, Crypt of the Necrodance. These are some of my favorite music games that Harmonix unfortunately isn't making, or we should have made those, but you should check those out. They're awesome. So what? Who cares? Who cares about music games, right? Well, you should, because game music systems are inherently more exposed in music games. Like the mute-unmute stems in Rock Band and Amplitude, remixing songs in Fantasia Music Evolved. It's oh, that's interactive music, and I'll talk more about that later. And of course, generating a new guitar part in Rock Band VR. You guys will be hearing a lot about Rock Band VR, so I hope you guys enjoy that. And advanced music systems can be used to any game's advantages, any game's advantage. So like a lot of these concepts here from music games, I hope you guys are using, and I hope you guys continue to explore and use. They'll create a world that feels more alive, a richer and less repetitive soundtrack, advanced feedback, which is super important considering the talk we just heard, and making the most from the composer's content regardless of budget. So if budget is a constraint, using an advanced music system might be able to take that like 20 minutes of music that you've been able to get from the composer and turn it into something a lot larger. Really quickly, I just want to talk about like what it's like to be a composer, both on a team at a game studio and on this side, just like what the interaction is between the composer and the team. I have not worked with Jesse Schell, but I one day hope to. So before any music is written, you coordinate with that team. Their vision and your vision come to some sort of agreement. The schedule, super important. How much time do I have to actually make music that works for you? The budget, what that means for live instruments, or what that means for spending enough time in the game, and then their tools, their engine, and your tools and your engine, and how those two can coordinate. But what I would really hope is that I had enough time and budget to write music I'm excited about. That usually means using live instruments, if it's not electronic music, using live instruments with professional musicians without the need for heavy use of samples. Of course, being a composer, you have to use samples, right? There are composers here, yes? So I'm sure you're used to having to use those samples because the game designers can't afford to pay you to do whatever the heck you want. You can't use the LA Symphony or the London Symphony like we did in Fantasia for every game you do, right? But at the end of the day, you want music that the designer and the entire team is excited about. Something you all can agree, like, yes, this is the vision that we want. Not only because of the tool set that they have, but because it's something you want to do and they want to do. Oh, and especially this stuff, like I mentioned before, Fmod and Wise. And for those of you who aren't using those, I'd at least check them out, because I don't know how hard it is for like you guys and where you guys are at, but the implementation I think nowadays is a lot easier to get up and running. Why should we use those? A dedicated audio engine is crucial for the audio designer to get in and do what they want to do creatively. It empowers your composer and your sound designer. I'm only talking about music in this talk, but of course it influences, or it empowers the sound designer. And yeah, they're getting cheaper to license. I think that like as of this year, maybe last year, the cost barrier to entry has gone way down. And if you can't even afford that, I think that they're really open to talking with them. You can talk directly to Wise, and they're really good about licensing to indie developers. For sure, it's the best way to get your game's audio sounding immersive, interactive, modern, and musical. So music systems, right? This is kind of like, this is a Venn diagram, right? That's what a Venn diagram looks like. So I'll talk about a few. These are like, there are more than this, but these are like what I like to consider before jumping into any game. Like, where does the soundtrack I'm going to write fit into these three categories and where they might overlap? So the most obvious is linear music, and we're talking about like Tetris, just any game where it's just a soundtrack happening in the background. It's a static soundtrack. The simplest way to get music into a game, so like we talked about before with Zelda, it's just like, you're in one area of the level, going to the next area of the level, music loops and stingers. And you don't really need a third-party audio engine. You don't need Wise to like play an event, go to stop the event, play another event. And if you have a dedicated audio or some audio support on your team to make these transitions happen, you can do that. You can have like a nice crossfade from one piece to the next. Lots of games are doing this from the past. Just like a really quick example of an obvious one. The soundtrack isn't changing. There's nothing that influences this piece of music. Right, it's just like, I'm in this scene, play a song. Cool. But yeah, linear music, like this music system does not mean low budget. To be clear, this is a perfectly reasonable way to go for any music game, even with large budget, because it might be less distracting. Interactive music can sometimes can pull your brain off from the thing that you need to focus on. Let's say like the game has a vibe that just like it's requiring way too much of your attention here or there, and the music, you don't want that to get in the way. So a linear music system, just a constant song that loops, might be the way to go, because you don't want your player to be focused on the music, or you don't want the music to influence their attention. Ori and the Blind Forest is is a great example of a modern game that does this. The composer, who I can't remember his name, did an awesome talk this year at GEC, if you guys can check it out, about this, just like why he chose linear music. But yeah, the budget was not a part of the conversation. They had a huge budget to go for a full orchestral score, and it is gorgeous. But it is using this like traditional linear progression where you just go from one level to the next. So it's like nothing terribly fancy. So this would be right here in the magical oh, what happened? Shoot. Okay, well, it should be over there. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, no, sorry, I'm at the wrong part of my conversation. No, we're good. We're talking about interactive music now. Music ebbs and flows in interactive music. This is kind of like where composers like to be in this space. Like if you're just, if you're getting to use a third-party audio engine, you want to have a little bit of interactive music going on. I think it makes the most of like both the technology and like what the composer can give to the team. Music ebbs and flows, dynamic to the player's choices and the state of the game. So like you're talking with the engine, you're talking with the things happening in the scene. Yeah, it's like natively built into these systems that I'm sure you guys are aware of. So here's a quick example of Peggle 2 using that. There's a lot going on here, but just pay attention to the background music. So as the score is going up, the soundtrack is subtly changing. Now, you probably also noticed that the ball, as it was hitting those I don't know what this is called, peggles, I don't know. But as it's hitting those, it's generating a little bit of a soundtrack as well, right? So let's talk about that, the generative music. I use No Man's Sky as a reference because I think the entire thing is generative, which is crazy. The soundtrack is created on the fly by a set of rules and parameters that the composer will give, but also, again, communicates with the game engine, just like Peggle did. Stems that play together well and can be randomized is one way to do it. Basically, that's like the lowest barrier. I use this a lot, just like stemming out my piece of music that I'll writing 3 different string parts, writing 5 different percussion parts, and then letting the audio engine choose which of those parts that make up that track. Also, in this case, music events have the potential to drive gameplay. So now we're talking about the audio engine talking to the game, which, again, we'll talk about Rockman VR. 2 great examples of generative music, Rise of the Tomb Raider and Red Dead Redemption. I'm going to play a little bit of this clip from Red Dead Redemption.
Having researched and discovered instruments to have an authentic Western sound, the biggest challenge was finding a way of recording a score that could adapt according to decisions the player makes. So instead of songs, they composed stems.
We had to devise a method by which those stems could be used practically anywhere in the game and interact with other stems.
The team decided to create all the music at 130 beats per minute in A minor, so that the game engine can play stems on top of one another and create music on the fly.
If you jump on a horse, a bass line kicks in. When you start getting chased, timpanis roll in and big fuzz guitars roll in, and there's a shootout. The music actually changes with the action.
Getting the right combination of music and timing is essential to further connecting the player to the world that Rockstar created.
So that pretty much sums it up. I just figured I'd let the video play. It kind of talks about everything I want to talk about as far as generative music. One specific thing about that just to call out for composers, composing everything in one key allows for, for a soundtrack I did everything in the key of D. That allows for the sound effects to also be in the key of D if you want to. And you can kind of use those stems that you write across the entirety of the game, regardless of the level. So it gives us, the composer a lot of reusability. Also, if you're in the situation where you're just handing off your music to a team, like if you're not specifically on the game team, you have this body of music that's in D. You give it to the sound designers over on the team, and then they can do whatever they want with it. And because it's all in the same key, they can be creative with your music. So remember, there's no right or wrong music system. All that really matters is quality from the composer's end, but the music should support your game. So choose one of these systems depending on like what kind of feedback and what kind of emotional response you want to get from your music. So now I'm going to talk about games that I've worked on, specifically at Harmonix and with SkewSound, just like comparing what it's like to do a music game with a certain music system, and then talk about what it's like to do music for a regular game, incorporating some of these lessons learned. So first, let's talk about linear music, games I've done linear music for. Beat Sports, right? Let's go look at that. Let's just how cartoony that is. Everyone loves Beat Sports. Harmonix, it's a Harmonix game, a music sports motion game on the Apple TV. So it's super simple. All you're doing is you're playing you're holding the controller and whacking the ball to the beat of the music. And we wanted the music system to reflect that simplicity. So we chose linear music because the player needs to focus on interacting with the music. If the backing track was changing and responding to you often, that would be very distracting. You need to be locked in with the beat, obviously. Here's a picture of one of our lead engineers playing the game. But yes, we do also throw in a little bit of elements of generative music. The swing that you creates that percussion sound and singing pitch from the main character. So like a little bit of like just generative music there, just to feel like you are putting in a little bit of influence on the soundtrack. And we used Fmod for sound effects. So that certainly lies right here in this, maybe mostly linear, but a little bit of generative music. And that's using a lot of Harmonix tech. So here's a gameplay bit of what that looks like. So yeah, you can kind of see. I mean, it's pretty simple. If the soundtrack was changing, every bar or so to reflect your score or something, I think that would kind of be pretty distracting for the player, right? So we just chose this linear approach. Also, we were able to focus as composers on making the songs feel melodic and rhythmic. Again, if like a computer was deciding what the soundtrack would sound like, there's no way to be sure that the songs would be musical enough for you to know where to hit the ball, with the beat. So yeah, we felt good about that. Now let's take that and do something completely different with Grim Dawn. So this is a case of linear music where we just needed to make music for a game that had very little tech and what to do about that. So it's an open world Diablo clone built with the Titan Quest engine, no third-party audio engine rather. All of the music was triggered via a looping playlist with the music categorized by area. So very linear. No third-party audio engine, no tech really, no audio support. It was just like, here's the music, do what you want. But we had no way to synchronize stems. We couldn't do that generative music thing. So what do? We composed 6-minute-long songs with fades in and out, which seemed to do the trick. That gave the designers were happy, so that's great. Intensity builds kind of arbitrarily throughout those 6-minute loops. And they also had no budget for live instrumentalists. So we made the most of the situation with electric guitar. And I play electric guitar, I play flute, I play saxophone. So I just kind of used woodwinds and electric guitar to make up the body of the acoustic, give the soundtrack a little bit more life. So yeah, it's a linear music system, nothing special about this. So let's hear it in game. So yeah, I think it still works. I mean, it's certainly like people seem to appreciate it. People like the music. They're for some reason buying the soundtrack. It's like my best-selling soundtrack I've done. I'm like, okay, if you like it, I'm glad. That's great. But like, I think that due to the random play, some pieces did not necessarily fit with what's happening on screen. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Like, we don't know where, it's an open world game. We don't know where the player's going to be or what they're going to be doing. So the piece of music that gets triggered might not work. So it would have been nice to have some intensity parameters to drive drums. Like, a lot of the soundtrack was driven by drums, as you could hear in that one. So to just have like a little bit of like a knob just to turn up and down the drums when you're approaching an enemy, that would have been really cool. Witcher 3 does a really cool interactive music thing where it just, like, I mean, this is interactive music now, but when you're approaching enemies, the soundtrack completely changes. So to be able to do that just a little bit with drums would have been nice. Just when you're close to an enemy or when you're like driving up the intensity or shooting your gun or something. I don't know, just like some parameters to drive some stems would have been nice. Another fallout from just having a linear music system, especially for this kind of game, where people are playing at least 40 hours. We have people playing around 200 hours for some reason. I mean, it's a great game, don't get me wrong. But people are definitely sick and tired of hearing the same song mixes over and over again, and I don't blame them. So a lot of the times they'll just like turn off the soundtrack and play their own music, you know. So it's certainly a little bit of fallout there. So let's transition, now we talked about Witcher 3, let's transition back into interactive music. And let's talk about Fantasia. Holy crap, that game. A Harmonix Connect title. The entire game was built around driving and interacting with the score. So I learned a lot about interactive music systems with Fantasia. And because it was a well-funded game, we had a great budget. We were able to have live musicians with orchestra and chamber groups, with the London Symphony Orchestra. We were able to commission Jan Zor to write the main theme, a bunch of other themes. And when we talk about the game is pretty much revolved all around interacting with the music. You're performing with the mix like a conductor, influencing that mix, swapping stems interactively. And every song that you play in the game has 3 mixes to choose from. So it's like, let's say you have the London Symphonies playing, Winter, and then Winter by, what's his name? Winter? Vivaldi, thank you. And then Zed with his remix, and then my like Radiohead ripoff, all like happening at the same time. But you get to choose from 3 different stems, so you can choose like violins from the original track. You can choose like electronic drums from Zed's, or you can choose like guitars from mine. So you can make up like whatever combination of mixes that you want. And it's definitely, from what I can tell, it's the most player-facing interactive music system I can think of. So it certainly falls right here in the middle, because there's a lot of music systems that I'm not going to talk about today. So let's just, we're going to talk about only the interactive part. So here's an example of what that gameplay looks like. So the player's choosing the mix, like right at the top of the song. So right away, it's like interactive music. Let it go, sorry.
Let it go, can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, turn my back and spend no time.
So here's another moment we get to change the mix. So it's like, what other game is doing this where you're like changing the mix at certain spots in the game? It's like, yeah, definitely the most player-facing. Here's another version. Here's Vivaldi's Winter. And here's a big band version I did of it. So certainly this isn't maybe the most practical use of interactive music for you, but it's just an example of what it can do, you know, what Wise can do. So now, with the London Symphony Orchestra. Cool. All right. So yeah, that worked, certainly. It was a music game, interactive music, that totally works. And yeah, that especially works because every time you play the song, it might sound radically different. Each playthrough feels like you are interacting with the song everyone making. Certainly a reason to keep players come back. But we can utilize those lessons in other games. So let's talk about Gigantic. This is the game I was mentioning before where pretty much everything I wrote was in the same key. Everything's in D. take a SkewSound. So SkewSound is the crew of audio folks that I work with outside of Harmonix. So we all kind of innately understand what music systems can do, and it's really awesome to work with an audio team that like we all want to make the most of our soundtracks for every game that we work on. Large scale MOBA with colorful creatures in an ethnic otherworld setting. You guys know this game? Maybe? No? Yes? Sweet. If you guys don't know it, it's in open beta right now, so let me know if you want a key or something. It's a collection of maps, each with their own palette and unique cues, so, you know, lots of different worlds. And yeah, we decided to go with the fully interactive soundtrack that listens and reacts to the state of the gameplay. And I'm going to play, oh yeah, so Where Is It Lie? Mostly interactive. There's like one thing that's doing generative music, like the level ambience we stemmed out, and like every time you hear the ambience, it's a different set of instruments playing on top of each other. So here, I'm going to let this video run. It shows what we're doing in Wise, and then it'll show how Wise works in the game. So there'll be a piece of just like looking at the engine, and then I'll show you how that works in game. So in Wise down there, I'm able to sort of profile by like, these are states down there in that little drop down. So I don't know if you can tell, but like these states are changing, but they're happening at musical moments in the pieces, like on beats or on bars. Cool. Now in game. Now in game. Does that make sense to everybody? Are you guys doing this often in your games? No? Okay. Okay, cool. Keep trying. Awesome. It's definitely, as a composer, like the most fun kind of I love working with this kind of interactive music system. Like the soundtrack feels super alive, you know? It's definitely the most modern kind of like approach that's happening right now in games. The music always fits with music gameplay, mode, and intensity. For this game, yeah, it would have been nice. That was all samples. It would have been super nice to record with the full orchestra. But I feel like we're used to doing this, so we made the most of what we had. But definitely this music system is practical. It's like, I think it's relatively easy to implement. All we got to do is give you the states, and you guys can drive those states. And then because it's like why interactive music exists and why that tech works there, it's like it's built into these third-party engines in a way that's super accessible for the composer. Now let's talk about a weird one, the Magic Circle. The Magic Circle is a group of guys who have come from Irrational, so they're very quirky and they love writing really weird stuff. This game's narrative was so crazy. Have you guys played this game? It's like, yeah, so you guys will appreciate it because it's like about game design. It's about like, you're essentially a play tester in this unfinished game, and the game is like half-baked. It's so, the art direction, which I wish I'd found a picture and showed you guys, but it's super wild. Super small team, 3 people, and they did not use a third-party audio engine, we did not have audio code support. We had a little bit, but not a lot. But they definitely wanted music to be a part of the narrative somehow. So, okay, they wanted something super interactive, but they didn't have many tools. So I knew I wanted to do something kind of quirky and weird, so I'm super influenced by Bartók, and I thought that like that kind of angular, esoteric, classical influence would work really well in a really angular, esoteric world. And to kind of get more interactivity with the narrative, basically in the subsequent playthroughs, you enter an area, let's say you enter a cave. Every time you go in there, you'll hear the same piece, right? But you'll hear a new take, like me in the recording studio, like yelling at the string players, like, do a better job, you're playing out of tune. And as you go through the game, those takes get better. So you'll eventually, like, but by the end of the game, you're hearing like the finished composed piece. So that relatively simple amount of interactivity and lightweight code ask, I hope, made for a more thoughtful narrative experience. So yeah, we wrote a little bit of like cutscene cues and stuff, but most of it was like right there on that barrier of like interactive and linear. So here's just a taste of what that was like to record in the studio. I wish I had gameplay to show you, but this is what I got. So you hear me like whispering after this take. So that's in the game, me talking. Yeah, it's so weird. Okay. Hey, I got a VO credit, whatever. So yeah, I think a third-party audio engine would have made for a more interesting music system because there were no loops. It was just these cues that happened as you enter. And yeah, it was a neat idea. I'm not sure I don't even know if any players actually recognized that this was happening. My personal opinion, a generative music system using Wwise might have served the game better to do some like weirder, more esoteric stuff. It was a really cool, fun experiment for a game that the game in and of itself was a weird, really cool experiment. So I don't know. I feel like give it another shot, maybe it does something a little bit different. So let's focus now on generative music. How are we doing on time? All right? Okay, I'll try to cut through this. Lots of fun stuff is happening in generative music right now. I'm going to focus on Chariot, which is a super practical use of generative music. Basically, it's just like stem swapping, but how much we can get out of that stem swapping. It's a multiplayer couch co-op casual platformer, super light narrative, pretty standard 8 worlds. Not a lot of budget, but enough budget for some live instrumentalists, live flute and mandolin. So I knew I was going to have some cool live quality sounding audio or music in these stems, and I wanted to make the most of that. I didn't want to just write these linear pieces. I wanted to make the most out of the few live musicians I was able to get. Since we were able to use Wwise, we are able to generate different, like I said, with stem randomization. Pretty much every piece of music in the game we stemmed out. You guys know what I mean by stem? I think I mentioned it earlier. Just like instead of just writing one violin take, like I write 5 violin parts. In this case, it's a solution to dynamically create way more content than what was budgeted. Again, so like if you only have /enough budget to get 20 minutes of music, this is a solution to make that 20 minutes of music 2 hours of music. So we were able to get one flute/violin performance of the melody, and then instead of writing 3 melodies, I just had them improvise two performances. And I used those 3 takes from both the flute and violin, as well as some other instruments, to make the most of like that overlapping nature. And so every time you would hear the piece, you would hear just something different. Sometimes you don't hear the melody at all. That's okay. Sometimes you just hear improvisation, and sometimes you hear both the instruments perform the melody in unison. So yeah, it's like it feels like a new piece every time you hear it. And here's an example of that in the audio engine. So you can see there's some empty spaces, so that not every stem is actually playing at every time you press the play event. So no flute that time. Oh, there he is. And now unison melody. So yeah, it's not like a brand new song, but it feels fresh every single time you hear it. And that worked really well for the entirety of the game, because we didn't write that much music for it, right? And maybe we wrote, 30 minutes for 8 worlds. And they were able to do that and get a lot out of that content. So the music palette and stem randomization plan was certainly successful. The use of Ys is awesome, able to get like a lot out of a little bit of music. Now let's talk about Rock Band VR, because wow, when we talk about generative music, I don't think it gets any crazier than this. Well, it might, but that's what I'm working on right now. So it's a music performance simulator crafted for VR. Optimized for being on stage and being present in space. No original music, obviously it's a Rock Band game, so there's no original soundtrack. And I figured, okay, cool, it's a chance for me to focus on being an audio designer and worrying about like VR audio, like binaural audio. There's a lot going on there right now. Spatialized stems, that's really cool, putting the drums on the drummer. Reverbs in every space, like you're in this hall right here, I could like grab an ambisonic microphone and capture that. Well, we sort of had time to do that, but something happened. The traditional Rock Band gameplay was not working in VR. So we pretty much on the audio team had to create a brand new guitar mechanic where you are generating the guitar part. So no more track falling down on the now bar. It's you're making a new guitar stem. That generated music then became the game. Matt, I'm sure, has had lots of late nights worrying about this part of it being a game. But yeah, your part is scored across a wide array of skills and challenges, which I'm not going to get into because it's amazing and wild. But we're just going to focus on the audio part of it. Yeah, we're still working on it. And it rides right here, like right in the middle of generative and linear. It's not an interactive score per se, but it's certainly a generative score. The soundtrack behind you is linear, right? Because it's just the song you're playing along to, but you're generating a new guitar part. So here's a sample of that gameplay. And this is essentially what I'm doing tonight. So if you can't make it, this is what you'll hear.
How's it going?
Oh, sorry.
How's it going?
Hey, get closer. I want to see you.
So yeah, you still have the guitar in the space. So I don't know if you can tell, but maybe you will. Every single chord shape makes a new stem, and if you play off rhythm, it just listens to what you're doing and plays right along. It's essentially like you're playing air guitar. And it always sounds good with whatever song you're playing. So there's nothing, there's a little bit of UI elements telling you what to play, but it's up to the player to decide what part they want to play and what rhythmic strum speed they actually want they can play. Here's the guitar solo. Right, so that was improvised. That's all generated in real time, right? Okay, so now we're going to turn this talk into how to make a generative virtual electric guitar performance simulator. I won't go too deep into this. I'll just make it quick. I know we're making it quick. This is our sampler. So we have two of these going on at every song, no matter where you are in the game. This is a 116 channel rhythm guitar sampler, so it's a multi-sampler. Every one of those channels plays a different chord shape or a different strum, like if you're strumming up or down. So it's either a different like bar chord, power chord, muted power chord, all those, and then as well as like stuff on the high frets. And then, yep, so that's that. And then there's also a separate one happening for single notes. So we have a whole multi-channel sampler happening for single notes and all the different ways that a guitar player might in real life pluck their string. And then, like I mentioned before, one for the chords. That also incorporates major chords, minor chords, dominant chords, major 7 chords. So every type of chord that a player might want to play, we have to take into account. as well as effects to make it sound like you're actually playing a guitar. You're moving, you're sliding, going up and down. You're doing cool like pick slides, like Van Halen. Is that Van Halen? No, yeah, Eddie Van Halen. Yep. And amp simulators happening dynamically with the song. So that's part of the authoring pass that we do, is that we make sure that every song's guitar part sounds correct. So that's not generative necessarily. I mean, that's authored. But we wanted to make sure that no matter what you play, it sounds right with the song and the mix. So how does it sync up to the song? Every song is marked up with MIDI and with chord, tempo, and rhythm information. This is just stuff we do at Harmonix. We're used to doing this. Like the whole entire Rock Band catalog is like has this information inherently. So we kind of like hijacked that and then added some more to it. So that using that information, we're able to dynamically generate solo licks. So we have authored some of those licks, but you can play whatever you want, and we'll kind of generate new audio depending on what we think your intention is. That includes sustained tremolo chords and single notes. And part of our big authoring pass this year, which was a big surprise for me, was that we would have basically any like eighth note, like core important stem for the song is not generative. It's like, I mean, it's generative in the sense that it's like adding to the soundtrack, but we're hand authoring it to make sure that like when you play Gold in the Ceiling, it feels like you're playing Gold in the Ceiling. So we're authoring a bunch of those tracks in MIDI, the entirety of the song, ensuring that, you sound like you're playing along to the song. So this is, what is it, 270? There's a whole friggin' Excel doc of like everything that we've had to write. Holy crap, this is oh shoot, I forgot. I was gonna show you guys the MIDI tracks, but whatever, didn't get that up. So anyway, holy crap, the music you're making is the video game. I'll be performing this tonight. If you guys are interested, or you probably are gonna be there. So let's wrap it up. So yeah, the tools make so much possible. Don't be pressured to utilize any of this. Just whatever works for your game, right? Work within a system that fits your game design and has the potential to convey feedback and emotion that's appropriate. Music systems have the potential to be a two-way street, just like Rock Band VR. They don't have to be, but I think that's kind of where I see game audio going inherently, especially music for games. James Newton Howard said, "Don't worry about the picture, just write great music and the rest will take care of itself." I disagree. For games, consider the picture, make great music. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Steve. We're going to just do a couple quick questions, and then we will break. Question? Yeah.
Yeah, like seeing the guitar used in VR when it's an object that you don't actually see, and could you just give your take on like peripherals that are going to be added with different form factors, but for VR, which you would, anyways. Yeah.
Your take on peripherals for VR?
Yeah, sure. Well, at least from working for Rock Band VR, I think we all immediately, I mean, this is like a year and a half ago that we saw it for the first time. We all agreed that it was like the coolest freaking thing, that like we knew we were on the right track, you know. Some players have commented that it feels weird to not see your fingers. We try to compensate for that by like, lighting up the frets as you hold them down. So I think any sort of feedback like that is helpful. But it certainly was a success, like having like it's just like seeing your hands but not seeing your arms, or you know what I mean? Like you don't. Some games will do that, but like I don't know. I felt like it was a pretty successful right away, right? Yeah.
So specifically with Rock Band, since you had to rework the guitar portion to be pretty much a different sort of type of gameplay that appeals to a different sort of player who may like, pattern matching and rhythm matching is like one thing. This is much more like expressive. How are you going to transition players who are Rock Band players so they know what to expect and that it's a different experience?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to transition players who expect one kind of Rock Band gameplay into a more generative kind of gameplay?
We are certainly right in the midst of figuring that out. So the short end, the quick answer is that we are doing crazy amounts of work to tutorialize it. And at the same time making sure that the gameplay, thank you Matt, is as deep and rich as the traditional Rock Band. So like basically there is an expert level of play that may not be the same feeling or give you, it doesn't do what Rock Band does on console, right? But it certainly is rich and deep as that. You want to add to that or? Okay. Yeah.
For the magic circle where instrumentalists are making mistakes and then you're talking about them, what did the score look like for that game?
So I gave them like the finished, like, I mean, I wish there were longer pieces. They essentially were like 15 to 20 second long cues, right? So I just gave them that finished cue and then told them, hey, play a bad take. And then we did maybe 10 of those, and then they eventually played one bad take that felt really bad, and I put that really bad take in the game, you know what I mean? And I would like cut them off and be like, okay, this time like play really, really, really flat. All right, and I'm gonna yell at you. Okay, cool, go. So it was like kind of how that session looked on video, right? Like where I'm just like yelling at them for real, and then I yell at them as a take. So it was a really fun recording session, yeah.
So when you're doing generative music or sound effects that play into your music, how do you make it feel tied to the player's action, but also sound good like on the beat?
How do you deal with sound effects and music and trying to make the sound effects sound good with the music, but also be responsive to player actions?
For sure. So that's something that both Fmod and Wise do really well natively. So especially in Wise, you can give things, like there's play events for sound effects, right? And those can happen right immediately, like as quickly as like the frame can point to the engine. But for a music game or anything that you want to interact with the score, there's triggers in the music system that are essentially like just like play a sound effect, but it'll happen at whatever musical interval that you want. So if you can say beat, you can say bar, whatever. I mean, you can say cue if you want to like have it only happen at like this specific point in the music. So if it's like the 16th note after beat 1, you can have that happen, right? So if you're building that from scratch, it's a lot harder, right? So Wise or Fmod, guys? Yeah, sweet.
For a smaller project, assuming no budget and no talent, we're interested in something besides the linear. What's your recommendation for trying to bootstrap something?
Recommendation for no budget, no talent, bootstrapping interactive music.
That's a good question. Hire some like poor jazz musicians on the street corner and put a zoom in front of them. No, I would say that like there are certainly some like free loops that you can, like GarageBand. I would suggest starting there. If you don't, I don't really know how to answer that. Like, what's that? Yeah, I mean, if you don't have an audio guy, if you're just basically trying to do it yourself and you're not a musician, I don't really know how to answer that question. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take one more and then we're gonna break. Yeah.
Hey, so we use Fmod on our project, and I was wondering, just like, I haven't used Wise, and I'm just wondering if you could compare and contrast real quick.
Right.
Pretty briefly.
Compare and contrast Fmod Wise.
They're relatively similar from like a feature set, right? They're like competing with each other right now, and every time I like talk to both parties, they're both like trying to do what the other one's doing and making sure that they're feature compatible, right? Or feature parity, right? I would say that Wise is a little more dev facing, so like it's like all the tools, like anything you can do is there. That's why it looks so crazy complicated. Like there's so many tabs and different fields, and it's like ready to be made for your game. Whereas Fmod, you have to kind of make the music or sound design happen. You have to kind of craft that in the tool itself. So it's like in Wise, there's more pre-made systems ready to go. In Fmod, you kind of have to make that yourself. That's like I'd say the main thing. Fmod is awesome though. We use Fmod Studio for Rock Band VR. We use it for Beat Sports. We've gotten really used to using it. It's just as like feature packed for sure.
Great. Thanks so much, Steve. We'll see you later tonight, I think.
Thank you, guys.
Eric's gonna update us with some announcements.